Hi everybody. Housekeeping first. I'm smoking my meerschaum. It's a lovely pipe. I got it at the pipe show and it's just so beautifully carved. But it's shiny. It's almost like plastic in a sense. It's so shiny. It's quite an incredible pipe. Smokes like a dream. And in it I've got Malte Dolce, I think it's called. Malto Dolce, which is lovely aromatic, beautiful smell, and a nice taste. I've got a friend with me today, and that's Lily. She's got her back to us and she's listening. Got the same trouble that Beerbird talks about in his video. The fireworks have upset her and she's daren't go out to go to the toilet and she's just shaking like a leaf. But I think she'll be all right. Oh dear. Sorry, excuse me a moment. When I was a little boy, well, I say a little boy, I was about 10 or 11. We left Norfolk to come up to Yorkshire. My grandma was ill and my mother sort of came up to look after her, and she insisted that Dad and I moved up into Yorkshire. And it was quite a difficult time for us because a few weeks later Grandma threw us out, which meant that we were homeless. And we couldn't get a house. There weren't any to rent, and we certainly couldn't afford one. And the social services, the social workers, were trying to find out where we were so that I could be taken into care and put into a children's home until things were sorted out. So what we used to do was drive out onto the Yorkshire moors somewhere, park up for the night and sleep in the car, which wasn't the best of ideas. Sorry. But it was the only thing that my parents could do to stop me being taken away, because they couldn't find us. They had no idea where we were. But one day a friend of Dad's at work who was a scout leader said to Dad, "Look, I've got an idea where you can stay." We've got a scout house where we go when we're having a camp, and it's in the Valley of Desolation. Now, the Valley of Desolation is in a place called, or near a place called, Bolton Abbey. It's an old Cistercian abbey, and I think the house used to be part of the Cistercian things there. I think they owned it. It was a very, very old house. And we went into the grounds of Bolton Abbey. drove over this bridge that went over the river and followed this dirt road into the Valley of Desolation. And it was certainly well named. Nobody lived there. There were all sorts of legends about the valley itself as to why it was so desolate. All kinds of stories. But anyway, we got to the house and Dad unlocked the door. There was no electricity. There was one tap with water, and that was in the so-called kitchen, which consisted of a table, some chairs, wooden chairs, and one or two cupboards that had some things like tea and coffee in them, but that was about all. But we brought some food and we brought some milk, and we were told where the candles were, and we also brought some candles. And we bought some sleeping bags and blankets. And as we sat there in this circle of candlelight, playing cards, Mum, Dad and myself, the wind got up and there were all sorts of strange noises from the house. And it was time to go to bed, so we each took a candle and we decided where we were going to sleep, in which rooms. My room was at one end of the corridor because it was the only single room, and Mum and Dad were at the other end of the corridor. And I sort of got ready for bed, got into bed, the candle on the little table by the side of the bed. But every time I tried to go to sleep, something disturbed me. At first it was the click of the Death Watch beetles that were eating into the wall or the woodwork. And they, when they're mating, make a little click sound. It's a very odd sort of noise. It's said that when you hear that sound, somebody's going to die or is in the process of dying. That's why it's called the Death Watch beetle. So you can imagine, for a 10-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy, my mind was going chaos. And I heard some footsteps. They seemed to be on the floor above. And then they seemed to be coming down the stairs. I daren't move. I swear that I heard them go past my door, down the passageway, and down the stairs. I daren't call my parents, but I heard the door downstairs, the front door, it had a snake on it, which lifted up and clicked down. And I heard that go, so I looked out of the window. And it was a fairly moonlight night. The wind had sort of was blowing the clouds across. And as the clouds cleared a little bit and the moonlight came out, I saw it. A hooded figure in the garden. And then the clouds came over and it couldn't see it anymore. But that night I lay there, wide awake, absolutely terrified. Was it a ghost of some monk that I'd seen, that I'd heard? Anyway, in the morning we got up and I told Dad about it, and he said, "Don't be bloody silly, boy. There was nothing in the house." And we left for me to be taken to school and Dad to go back to work and Mum to try and find somewhere to live. We opened the back door, and what should I see but the hooded figure stood in the garden with his back to us. It was a scarecrow. God knows what the sound of the boards creaking were, except probably the house settling. But it made me think, I'd spent the night terrified because of what I thought was out there. And later on, when I became a clergyman and in a particular diocese was asked to deal with strange happenings in buildings, it's amazing how often it was the product of an unclean mind rather than an unclean spirit. People would frighten themselves, and you sort of thought, this is silly. But there were 2 times when something really happened. One of them was a Muslim girl rang me up. She was living in a house in the parish. And she wanted me to go because she said the house was haunted. I asked her why she didn't get the imam to go. And she said, well, he wouldn't know what to do. But this is a Christian country, so it's a Christian ghost, and it's up to you to deal with it. So I arranged to go down and do what I had to do. And before I ever did anything like that, I would have a bath and change my clothes, put clean clothes on, clean underwear, just as part of the ritual that I always did, as much to make me feel better as anything else. And I got to the house and she had a neighbour in as a chaperone, a lady from across the road. And they asked me what I was going to do, and I said that what I was going to do was start upstairs in the bedrooms, and I was going to seal the windows with holy water and oil, just mark them with the sign of the cross, say a prayer asking any unclean spirit to leave that room. And I'd leave the door open whilst I did it, and then I would leave the room, shut the door, seal it with prayer and holy oil and sprinkle it with holy water, and do that in all the rooms, leaving the front door open all the time so that whatever was in there could leave if it wanted to. And downstairs I would celebrate Holy Communion in the main living room, and, carry on like that. And all of a sudden, the woman who was the chaperone for the girl was flung back against the wall in the hall. And we all heard a voice say, "Well, I'm off then." And that was it. I still did the ritual, but I think whatever was there had gone. But it was really weird hearing the voice. And the other one that I had was a girl who complained that she'd seen an old man with a billycock hat. That's sort of an old, the farmers used to wear them. And he was wearing an old jacket and a shirt that had an open neck, a granddad shirt we used to call them. And he'd been stood at the bottom of her bed looking towards her, and then he turned, and as he was walking out of the room, he seemed to disappear through the floor. She was a disabled girl and lived on this new house. They'd only been built for about 10 years, so they were very new. And I thought, what's a ghost doing in a new house? And is this disabled girl manifesting this ghost? Because sometimes where there are people with a disturbance, a physical disturbance or a mental disturbance, their mind seems to have the power to cause things to move, to cause strange effects. But anyway, I did some research and found that there used to be a farmhouse on that land. And when I, as far as I could, put the two maps together, the map of the housing estate that was provided by the builders for me, and the old map, the two houses seemed to be on top of one another. In fact, the stairs of the house seemed to be about where the girl's bathroom was. So I went, did the rituals, and she rang me up a month later and said all was okay. She never saw him again. It's strange what can happen, and you wonder what these presences are. And during our training, we trained with scientists and with doctors and psychiatrists, as well as clergy, because we were setting up teams to sort of help. Some didn't believe in ghosts and thought it was all the product of an imagination. I tended to feel that spirits sometimes got trapped, that there was some unfinished business. But I don't know. It was just a strange thing that seemed to happen. Anyway, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to end with a joke. I don't think I've told this joke to you before. A man goes to hospital and he's got multiple bruises and 2 black eyes and a 5-iron wrapped around his throat. And the doctor says, "My goodness, what on earth have you done, sir?" And he said, "I was playing golf with my wife, and we were on the 8th hole, and we both sliced the golf ball into a field next door where there were some cows. So we climbed over the fence to sort of see whether we could find the ball. And he said, I noticed that my wife's ball was stuck on the back side of this cow, right where it hurts. And he said, I just turned to her and said, I think this is you, dear. And he said, that's the last thing I remember.